Greetings. I am going to put together a demonstration here of VMware Workstation 8 running nested hypervisors, specifically Hyper-V. And so I've got a system that I purchased from Microcenter, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. It's running an Intel processor. I'm running VMware Workstation 8. So as far as the hardware goes, we're looking at an Intel Core i3930K, an ASUS P9X79 Pro motherboard, a 64 gigabytes of Corsair Vengeance DDR3 1600 megahertz RAM, external and internal storage, and a Radeon HD 7800 graphics card. I also have a Cooler Master, I think it's an H80 intercooler, Corsair 750 watt power supply, Cooler Master case, a couple other miscellaneous things. So one thing I wanted to mention is I am a big fan of purchasing systems so I can get extended warranties. I can make hardware problems someone else's problem. I'm in IT for a living, and I really don't feel like doing an extended amount of troubleshooting when I purchase a system. So in order to purchase a system with 32 gigs of RAM via popular vendors, Dell, Falcon Northwest, whatnot, systems were running close to $3,000. And with 64 gigs, even more than $3,000. So I found out that Microcenter builds systems. They sell extended warranties. They price match on Newegg. I was able to build this system with an extended warranty for roughly $1,000 less than I might have paid through Falcon Northwest or some other higher end custom design website. Dell didn't even offer 32 gigs unless you went into their precision workstations. HP had a couple. So anyway, moving along. What we're looking at here with the ASUS mainboard, and I haven't tested this for weeks, but I was having a lot of blue screens of death and some issues before, and I've kind of pinned down some settings here that appear to be rock solid. I disabled the speed stepping. I enabled EPT on the main board. I disabled power setting, and I'm not doing any overclocking. I didn't install any of the ASUS tools like the EasyTune or things of that nature, and I turned off the turbo. Next, I verified that the extended page tables would work with my processor, because on Intel's website it was kind of sketchy whether or not it actually would. It said like varies based upon an processor, and so it turns out that the VTX with the extended page tables does work. And I provided a link to the Intel processor identification utility. If you're running Intel, you can verify your system. There was some stuff going on in the BIOS, and that's how I knew that my system was overclocked on the frequency tester. It kind of let me know that. So I kind of wanted to go vanilla because I want to run this system all the time and I want it to be cool. Now on to the VMware Workstation settings. When you go to the processor, this is where you would enable virtualized Intel VT. And I chose EPT, which gives this nasty little warning saying that it won't work with other VMware products, which I'm fine with because ESXi reportedly does not work well with nesting Hyper-V anyways. So Workstation's the way to go in that regard. And there's some additional settings if you go down to this the communities at VMware that we're going to take a look at here. To nest hypervisor, basically to nest Hyper-V, we have to add a couple strings here to the WMX or whatever it's called, the configuration file. They'll talk more about it up there. But we want to add this string. We have to add this MCE-enable equals true if we're running hypervisor version 3 or Windows Server 8. So these are the two strings that you'll want to put into your BIOS. That's pretty crucial in order to get that to work. Last but not least, another thing that I think was contributing to my blue screens of death. I was getting graphics card errors, and initially the VMs were set up with to use host setting for monitors, and it would auto detect the number of monitors. The server 8 did not have accelerated graphics. My workstations did. I don't know if that was automatic or not. I have since went and set a single monitor with no 3D graphics acceleration and a hard set resolution. I noticed that my performance improved significantly, and as far as the last 24 hours goes, I have not had blue screens. One of the mini dump files that I was receiving implied that VMware and some sort of generic graphic driver wasn't happy, so essentially I'm hoping that that has been resolved. So on to the setup here. I have a DC which is separate from my environment, which would be a good practice because you can have all sorts of issues take place with logging in if you don't have a hardware virtualized DC, if you will. I have a storage server, and the storage server has a bunch of physical disks that are basically directly added, and I've got a couple drives that are in the Windows OS that I've got the OS drives for some of these VMware workstations. These drives are used for iSCSI connectors and things of that nature. I've got 4 Hyper-V host servers, one labeled in a cluster as Hyper-V host even, the other labeled in a cluster as Hyper-V host odd. And that's primarily, those 5 systems are primarily what we're working with for our cloud setup here. And we're just going to take a quick tour. This isn't going to be extremely technical in the way of a walkthrough, but it's just to kind of give you an example of what's possible. Just to kind of give you an idea here of the power behind this.
It reminds me of being a child and searching for lost artifacts with Uncle Decker.
I don't have enough arcane power.
So I've got to close out of that. What we have here is some shared storage within the storage server, and a couple failover clusters. And within these failover clusters, we're running a handful of Hyper-V machines. And sometimes I'll shut the other cluster down just to free up some RAM and resources. But we're going to go ahead and quick migrate over half of these, and we'll start these up. And as you can see here, we're hitting the proc a little bit, you know, but we just started, what, 6 virtual machines, and we already have 5 running. And this should balance out in a little bit. Alright, so here's the second cluster, Hyper-V even. And we'll go to the failover cluster manager. Look at the roles, and as you can see here, we have a handful of other Hyperv workstations. So we're just going to do a quick migration. Put these on the third host. And start these up. And as you can see, our processor utilization will spike for a little bit. And it should drop back down. Now, as far as the storage server goes, just take a quick look at the server manager. And you'll notice that I took the physical disks, or as Windows Server 2012 calls them, JOBD, just a bunch of disks. I put them in a storage pool here. I created some VMs, a couple quorum drives for the clusters, DPM storage, shared cluster storage, and I'm delivering them with iSCSI. And so, for instance, our Hyper-V cluster even, once we create the cluster storage, basically maps here, and then it shares all this storage between those clusters. So when you add your storage, you just enable this to be a shared cluster volume. And that allows for us to take and live migrate a server. You can do move, live migration, select a node. And if your storage is set up and you don't have any CD devices and things like that, if your NICs are named identically on all your VM hosts, your live migration process should go smoothly. And as you can see here, we're interacting with the server. And we will continue to do so except for a couple ping. Probably get like a ping loss of 1 or 2. And the system will come back up. And we are suffering some processor utilization in this, but nothing drastic. So there we go, we lost our connection and it reconnected. And we've successfully live migrated to the other host. And I'm not able to get replication working, so maybe you folks out there in the forums will be able to help me with that, but eventually I want to replicate the storage between the two clusters. For now, I've got a lot of work to do in trying to get System Center Cloud to work. VMM sees my clusters, but it does not allow me to make templates on the shared storage. So that's another thing that will require some work. And you might ask, what are the advantages of having a lab system like this? And primarily, it's to do some simulations and kind of hone my System Center skills. But then to be able to turn this environment off at the end of the day, save electricity, and not to have separate hardware. I can still re-encode video, play games, things of that nature.